You guys, this is absolutely horrible. Police in Yukon, Oklahoma received a call yesterday at 9:35 in the morning from a 10-year-old little boy claiming that he woke up and found the other 5 people in the home to be deceased. When police arrived, they said it was a total massacre. In a press conference this morning, police announced that 42-year-old Jonathan Candy had gotten into an altercation the night before with his wife, 39-year-old Lindsay Candy, and at that point, he got out his firearm and shot her numerous times. He then systematically went through the house and unalived his 3 kids. They're 18-year-old Dylan, 14-year-old Ethan, and 12-year-old Lucas. This is an older photo from 2017, but it's the only one I could find so far. The police said they're unsure why that 4th child was left unharmed. Lindsay and one of the kids was found downstairs, and the other 2 kids were found upstairs, and they said that one of them was in their bed. And they don't know if anybody tried to fight back, but they believe that pretty much as soon as he saw one of them, he just took their life immediately. It was also reported that there was never any kind of history of domestic issues within the home, so nobody really has a clue what made him decide to do that. Prayers going up to the family and the friends. I can't even imagine.
Wholesome facts that'll make your day slightly better, part 1. When a human sees a puppy, a chemical called dopamine is released in the brain. Elephants also release dopamine when they see people, meaning that they think we're cute in the same way we think puppies are cute. There's a YouTube channel called Dad, How Do I that teaches young people things that would typically be taught by a father figure. From how to change a tire to how to tie a tie, fans of the channel think it's super helpful. When you're on a walk with your dog and they stop to take a dump, you may notice that your fluffy friend is staring at you as they poop. They do this because they're in a defenseless position and they're trusting you to keep them safe. There are more public libraries in the US than McDonald's. After the horrific events of 9/11, a small Kenyan tribe known as the Maasai people gave 14 cows to the US in their support. The man who played Mickey Mouse ended up marrying the woman who played Minnie Mouse, meaning that true love actually exists.
These are animals that were scarier than dinosaurs, part 2. The helicoprion was a 20 to 25 foot fish that existed around 270 million years ago. It was discovered when paleontologists started examining a mysterious fossil that contained a row of teeth and swirled. It was given its name after a scientist concluded that the fossil came from a shark-like fish, and it was believed that the teeth were located on top of its nose, while others believed that the teeth were attached to the lower jaw, or even on its dorsal fin or down its throat. Either way, a shark with a saw for teeth is terrifying. Next, the Forest Racidae is nicknamed the terror bird for a good reason. After dinosaurs went extinct, these 10-foot birds became the top predator in South America for 60 million years. Their beaks could easily break the spine of a horse and crush the skull of their prey with one headbutt. They also had the same feet as T-Rexes. And lastly, the Titanoboa is considered to be the biggest snake to ever exist, with a measurement of 50 feet in length, 10 times the size of a green anaconda. It lived 60 million years ago in what's now Colombia, and scientists were conflicted when studying this creature as it defied the laws of gravity. Usually, most land animals don't grow as large as this is because of gravity, but those that live in water don't deal with the same issue, which is why we have creatures like the blue whale. So many believe that the Titanoboa spent a lot of time in water. Not to mention, it also preyed on crocodiles. So if one still exists, stay on land.
Disclaimer, depending on when you're watching this, there might just be a gender war in the comments, which is crazy because we're talking about baboons, so you probably know the deal with baboons, right? Usually the biggest, most belligerent alpha males, the top ape, they're the ones that get the most, while the lesser males, the best they can do is get the scraps. And how does a baboon become an alpha? Oh, easy. Violence. Lots of it. It's like a vicious cycle. If the most aggressive baboons are the ones doing the most gooning, the more baboonery becomes generational. Except the cycle did break at one point. There was a point, I think it was like in the 1980s or something, where a bunch of baboons ate at a garbage dump, caught tuberculosis, and took a permanent leave from life. Oh, they dead. And with a lot of the aggro males out of commission, that left a lot of mild-mannered survivors. Now, you might think they took the opportunity to start big flexing, like on some bully become the bullies type shit. Actually, no, they were in fact chill like that. Now, normally the alpha males would regularly have temper tantrums and would beat on other males, females, and if you were an unsupervised minor, you could really get the Hulk to Loki treatment. But nah, these new males were kinder. They would spend more time grooming females, but not like in the weird YouTuber kind of way. And they would even babysit for other females. And since male baboons leave their birth troop to join a new one, new members would see this and be like, oh, so this is what we doing? I bet. Basically, there was a whole culture shift, and all it took was the bullies getting blacklisted from the census. And yeah, we're still talking about baboons here. The same ones that jump leopards and eat baby gazelles fresh out the womb. Those baboons, the more you know.
A high school football star who took his own life after falling victim to a sextortion scam is finally seeing justice. Nigerian brothers Samuel and Samson Ogoshi posed as a woman on Instagram and tricked 17-year-old Jordan DeMay into sending them intimate photos. They demanded the teen send them $1,000, threatening to share the pictures with his friends and family if he didn't pay up. 6 hours later, DeMay was found dead. His last message was, "I'm killing myself right now because of you." Now the scammers have pleaded guilty to conspiring to exploit teenage boys.
The infamous case of the woman that cut off her husband's manhood. When Lorena married John Bobbit, she thought that it was going to be happily ever after. But in reality, John started hurting Lorena the second they tied the knot. Physically, emotionally, and then he started essaying her. This guy was a huge a-hole. Unemployed while his wife worked 2 jobs, forced Lorena to end a pregnancy that she wanted to keep. Cheating on her. On top of all of that, he would go out, get super drunk every night, then come home and essay Lorena. Then one night in June of 1993, after John essayed his wife and passed out drunk, his wife Lorena went to the kitchen to get herself a glass of water, where a large cutting instrument was in plain view, which Lorena took back into her bedroom and cut off John's member. She then got in her car and left and threw it out the car window. But somehow they were able to find it in time and reattach it after a 9-hour surgery. There was actually 2 trials in this story, one for what Lorena did to John and one for what John did to Lorena, and they were actually both found not guilty. They obviously divorced and went on to live very different lives. Today, Lorena is a wife and mother, and also the founder of her own foundation against domestic violence. After the incident, John went on to star in some adult movies. Today, he's unemployed and has been married and divorced 3 times. And just last week, he publicly announced that after drinking contaminated water, he had to have all 10 of his toes recently amputated, which doctors were unable to reattach.
Is this AI? Netflix is facing criticism for allegedly using computer-generated images in a true crime documentary. What Jennifer did details how then 24-year-old Jennifer Pan arranged a kill-for-hire attack on her parents, but what's really haunting viewers is some of the uncanny pictures used in the movie. In one of the photos in question, Pan's hands appear to be missing fingers, and parts of the background look warped. In another, her ears and teeth look amiss. Now viewers are questioning whether or not the use of AI in documentaries is ethical. So what do you think? Is there a serial killer terrorizing Texas? 2 bodies have been found in Austin's Ladybird Lake, bringing the total to 12 since 2022. Police say the deaths are likely accidental due to the lake's proximity to popular nightlife spots, but rumors of a possible Rainy Street Ripper continue to swirl as the bodies keep piling up. While cops have ruled out foul play in several cases, at least 1 death remains unsolved. One local bartender has a hard time accepting there's not something more sinister at play, saying, "I find it hard to see how people could leave Rainy and end up at the lake. You have to walk blocks to get there."
Guys, there's breaking news out of Yukon, Oklahoma this morning, where reports are that 5 individuals from the same family were all found DEAD in their home. Now, I know your first thought is that it was an MS, but the word is that it is not. It was not. This was a very brutal HOMICIDE. The word that I'm getting, of course, this is unconfirmed, but the word that I'm getting is that it was a mom and dad. They have 4 children. 3 of those children were still in school. 1 of those children graduated last year in 2023, and that it was their 10-year-old son who actually made the discovery. Mustang Public Schools there in Yukon, Oklahoma have confirmed that 2 of those victims were students at that school. Law enforcement was called to do a welfare check, and they went in and they discovered what is being described as a very violent scene. There is no official word on the actual cause of DEATH. Sorry, I'm having to spell everything out. I just don't want this taken down. I do know the names of the victims. However, I have not seen that publicly released anywhere. I'm not going to go ahead and share it. I'm going to wait until law enforcement officially gives names, releases names. They are supposed to be giving out more information tomorrow morning. As soon as that information is available, I will come back and share it with you guys.
The Egyptian woman that you just saw in that video, Manar Sami, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for the content she posted on TikTok. But what exactly was she posting on TikTok that got her sent to prison? Well, nothing out of the ordinary. Dancing, lip syncing, and basic innocuous content. But she was arrested in 2020 on charges of, I'm going to read this to you, inciting debauchery, immorality, and stirring up instincts. Yes, she was arrested for immorality and inciting debauchery with her dancing TikTok videos. Well, Manar, like I said, was eventually sentenced to 3 years in prison. This happened back in 2020 when a number of Egyptian female TikTok influencers were randomly targeted and sentenced to prison time. After being found guilty, she was also ordered to pay 300,000 Egyptian pounds to the government. She did eventually get out of prison though, and she's still active here on TikTok. And over on Instagram too. I just couldn't believe it when I saw that video and saw that content like that got her sentenced to 3 years in prison. It's pretty wild to me.
Which, Shannon, stingrays are pregnant all the time, right? Who cares? Wrong, because this stingray is in a tank of all other female stingrays and some sharks.
So stingrays are one of the few animals able to do Pareno Genesis, which is just cloning themselves without fertilization, aka they need a man about as much as a fish needs a bicycle, which is not at all. And as close cousins of stingrays, some sharks like hammerheads and blacktips can Pareno Genesis as well. Komodo dragons and zoos have been known to do the multiplying magic trick too. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know everything. I googled the number, and apparently there's over 80 animals that can have an immaculate conception. But that really shouldn't be surprising. There's an animal that only ever uses this because they got the opposite of a sausage party. They got clouder power. Clouder is a name for a group of cats. This is a whiptail lizard, and every single one alive is a female. There are no males in existence. Where did they come from? Where they all go? Don't ask me. I honestly don't know. If someone more knowledgeable than me wants to drop the facts, please do. I'll pin you. But yeah, they're all female, and they all use Pareno Genesis. But the freaky part is they still gotta, like, how am I gonna say this? Alright, basically what I'm afraid Godline's finna do to me, these lesbianist lizards pretend to do to each other, because I guess it triggers ovulation. I don't know, bro. I'm still stuck on the fact all the males got snoot off the senses. But yeah, from lizards to dragons, from pythons to water placemats, some animals can Xerox themselves, the more you know.
Recently, several women have been randomly punched in the face.
The man came up and punched me in the face. I just got punched in the face.
He goes, sorry, and then punches me.
Punched me in my shit.
The injuries range from a black eye to as severe as a broken nose. The man believed to be responsible is 30-year-old Jean Carlos Zarzuela. Police caught and arrested him, but the court utterly failed. He was quickly released from jail without bail, and 9 days later at the Grand Central Terminal in New York, he struck again. According to reports yesterday, he punched an innocent 9-year-old girl, leaving her dizzy and in pain. As of now, he is currently in jail, but if the court failed to keep him locked up and removed the bail, who's to say he's not going to be released again? With that being said, if you are a woman living in New York, please keep an eye out for this man as he's extremely dangerous.
Former cop showed up at the school yesterday during dismissal and took the life of his ex-wife, and then he fled. And looking for him, the cops went to his home, and then they found his 17-year-old girlfriend there, whom he got pregnant at 15. She was unalived also. Now, this happened in Washington, and the age of consent in Washington is 16 years old. So he was due in court yesterday to answer to charges of him impregnating her at 15, as well as taking advantage of her friend who spent the night at their home. So the 17-year-old girl had moved in with him, and she had a friend over that was 16 years old. They was drinking throughout the day or whatever. Then she says that she went to bed with her friend, in the bed with her friend. She woke up to her boyfriend, who's 39 years old, taking advantage of her friend. Like I said, he had impregnated his girlfriend, and when this happened, that baby was 9 months old. But now that baby is 1. He has abducted that baby, and he's on the run. Now, the 17-year-old's name is Angelica Santos, but they call her Jelly. And Jelly's brother did take to Facebook yesterday because he thought the former cop had also abducted Jelly and the baby, but it turns out that Jelly was in his home unalive. Now, he and his ex-wife do have 2 children together. She tried to change the custody arrangement because she felt like he was a threat to her and her children. She said he was emotionally and mentally unstable. He had been harassing her so much throughout their divorce that she had to get a protection order. On top of going through that, he was also dealing with the issue with the 16 and the 17-year-old that he got pregnant when she was 15. Now, I just hope that in them catching him, he don't decide to take his life as well as that baby's life.
Are you tired that the police are finally going to figure out that you're the one with all the dead bodies in your basement? If so, congratulations, you once again made it to Criminal TikTok, and today I'm going over some tips and tricks on how to not become a serial killing suspect. So if you have a friend who might need this video, make sure to tag them below. Tip and trick number 1, a lot of serial killers, as they kill more people, they get more and more lazy, so they stop driving out as far and get closer and closer to their home. You're basically leading the detectives directly to your house. So make sure as you kill more people, you go further and further away. Alright, tip and trick number 2, ideally you're not even unaliving people in your own country. You see, you might know your own country more, but your own country also knows you more. If you're constantly traveling to new countries and having a little bit of fun while you're there, the police will never look in the right place because they always expect someone who lives there or had a connection to the victim to be the one that did it. And also think about it, when was the last time you heard of an international serial killer? You haven't, because they never get caught. Step number 3, I know it's very hard for some of you to limit yourself, but if you could hypothetically limit your unalivings to 1 every 2 to 3 months and in different locations, the police will never connect these together, giving you a much greater chance of escaping. Last but not least, a lot of people get caught because they'll commit a completely separate crime and the police will investigate them and figure out that they're the ones doing the serial killings. Yeah, just don't be that guy. Thanks for watching and follow for more tips and tricks.
I knew I would end up dead. Those were the chilling final words Laura Cowell wrote to her daughter after falling victim to a Match.com scam before mysteriously drowning. The widower had been in a relationship with a man she met on the dating site who went by Frank Borg for over a year when her body was found in a river nearly 4 hours from her home. Before her death, Borg had scammed her out of $1.5 million. Her car was found 50 miles from her body, and her cause of death was determined to be drowning.
West Virginia man gets life for killing his daughter and son-in-law over an alleged incestuous relationship. On April 22nd, they found him guilty for 2 counts of first-degree murder. This whole thing happened back in 2022, and he will now serve life behind bars. He needs to serve 30 years before he'll be eligible for parole. Apparently, cops pulled up to the scene with reports of gunshots. That's when Carl Cox behind me said he had to wrestle the gun out of her boyfriend's hand to shoot him. However, his story was not adding up. Both of them were lying in bed, and it looks like they had been shot while they were lying down. They also found a few bullets that penetrated through the mattress. So Carl Cox's story behind me was just not adding up. There was also no signs of struggle. So he was trying to frame this entire incident. And of course, a good old surveillance camera caught him walking towards the bedroom with a gun in hand. And he kept lying in court. But he messed up when he told a fellow inmate that he killed both of those people. His daughter and his son-in-law. I'm not sure what his game plan is here. He was lying to the court but telling others what he actually did. But here's where things make sense and get really, really disgusting. One of his children came forward saying that he was having an incestuous relationship with his daughter that he shot. So I guess he got jealous that she had a boyfriend or husband and then went and killed them both. Now that is absolutely disgusting, and that makes a lot of sense with this story. Let me know what you guys think about this case in the comment section below, and as always, these videos are for informational purposes only.
This is the creepiest unsolved mystery because this man is still out there. Like, they never caught him. The media called him Mr. Cruel, and he was a predator from 1987 to 1991 in Australia. This literally looks like a creepypasta, but I swear it's not. He had 4 attacks, and they were similar. He was either abducting children or abusing them. He'd stalk his victims for months to plan out his attacks. Like, listen to this. So all of these pictures are like real police sketches of what he supposedly looked like, which just makes it so much creepier. Like, this is his first attack. He was armed with a knife and a handgun. He was wearing his mask. He broke into this house at 4 a.m. and he locked the parents in a closet and tied their young son to the bed, cut the phone cords in the house, and did unspeakable things to the daughter. All very young children. Another attack, he broke into the home with the same weapons, the same description. Also at 5 a.m., like very similar times, he bound and gagged the parents, and then he abducted their daughter. And he addressed the daughter, her name is Sharon, by her name. Which is alarming because it's like, how did he know her name? Does he actually know the family? No one knows who this guy is. Maybe this was their neighbor. And similarly, once the family was able to free themselves, they went to the phone and all the phone lines were cut. Next day, they found their daughter walking around with a trash bag. She said that she had been assaulted many times and tortured in unspeakable ways. And he gave her a bath after and clipped her nails and flossed her teeth so there wouldn't be any evidence. Also, this is all for educational purposes, of course. When the last victim was abused and abducted, her family put out a $300,000 reward if she was ever returned. And they involved the police, but she was never found again. They ended up finding her skeleton years later. Like, this guy walking his dog stumbled upon her skeleton, and she had 3 wounds in the head. All of these attacks were very calculated, and there was no evidence. There was literally no evidence. This man was so smart. No one could ever identify him. He thought of everything. And they'd think that they found evidence, they'd think they'd have a lead, they'd question people, and then they'd get thrown off. They narrowed it down to 30,000 suspects, and then they watched them, and they questioned 15,000 of them, and every time they got a lead, they'd get thrown off. So no one ever knows who this man is. He might still be out there. He might be gone by now. Who knows? If you like my content, follow my TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube for more. It really helps when you interact. Also, go check out those other platforms because you know what's going on right now.
This is probably one of the most hated people on the internet right now. Mr. Beast did another competition where ages 1 through 100 compete to win $250,000. During one point of the competition, they spun a wheel, and whatever number it landed on, that was the number of the person that then got to decide the fate of all the rest of the contestants whose number the wheel landed on. Number 43 was in charge, but had number 42 in their ear, basically telling them, just eliminate everybody. Now, before the contestants were eliminated, they had the chance to plead their case on why they should stay. And then it finally lands on number 11, which is an 11-year-old child.
You are a kind person, and you are kind enough to not eliminate me.
Oh, wow. Save Gio! Save Gio! Then we had 42 in her ear saying,
don't do it. Now's not the time to develop a heart, okay?
43 responds and says, okay, and proceeds to eliminate number 11.
So much. You are literally the coolest 11-year-old I've ever seen. You've got tons of energy and spunk, and your future is super bright. But unfortunately, your time here is over.
And number 11 tearfully leaves the game. However, towards the end of the game, they blacked out everybody's cube. And if only one person left their cube, they would win $250,000, which was what the prize was to begin with. But if another person stepped out, they were both eliminated and no one got the money. Well, number 42 yelled, I'm going to walk out of my cube, which meant if anyone else walked out, then they both lose. So 42 steps out, and at the very last second, 58 also walks out, just so 42 doesn't win.
New details have come out in the terrifying case of 6-year-old Alicia McPhail. If you've been following, you know Alicia was abducted from her bed by 16-year-old Aaron Campbell. He's just been moved to an adult prison where he says he is terrified that he'll be targeted for what he did to her. You see, on July 2nd, Alicia was actually on vacation, visiting her dad on the Isle of Bute. He and his girlfriend reportedly watched Peppa Pig with her before bed, and then, like everyone there, they left the house key in the front door. Now, meanwhile, about 5 minutes away, then 16-year-old Aaron was celebrating the end of exams. He had about 15 friends over that night, but by 12:30, he reportedly got into a fight with his mom, and his attitude changed. One of his friends actually came up to his room to check on him, but he just insisted. After going to get some substances, he'd be fine. His friends then ended up leaving his house, and he texted the couple who was known to sell him said substances. And that was Alicia's 26-year-old father and his girlfriend. As we know, at 1:46, Aaron texted Robert like he always did, but with no response after 6 minutes, he decided to head over there himself. He then walked the 5 minutes to Alicia's grandparents' house where he lived, and armed with a kitchen knife, he simply walked inside. Alicia's bedroom was actually the closest room to the door, and as soon as he saw her, he, quote, knew that he had to kill her. From here, Aaron picked Alicia up, and he started walking with her along the shore. She actually woke up at one point and asked what was going on, but he told her he knew her dad and was just taking her home. Instead, he took her to the old site of the Kyles of Butte Hotel, where he inflicted 117 catastrophic injuries. Tragically, a coroner would note that he violently shook her, and he took his time. Now, come the next morning, when Alicia wasn't in her bed, the entire town started searching. And then, around that same time, her dad and his girlfriend of course saw that they had this missed text from Aaron. They called him back that morning to ask what he needed and to see if he could help look for Alicia, but he responded, quote, "It doesn't matter anymore. And oh damn, I'm sure she's not gone too far." Now by 8 that morning, a local searcher found Alicia's body, along with all of her clothing that had been thrown into the sea. Her funeral was held about 5 days later, but her mom wasn't the only mother there upset. Aaron's mom was there too, and she actually wanted to do anything she could to help. So she offered to check her family's security cameras. Now when Jeanette checked these cameras, her heart sank, because there was her son leaving at the same time Alicia disappeared. She immediately went to ask him about it, but he must have had a good explanation. She ended up taking that footage and giving it to police in an effort to clear his name. As we know, while police initially brought Aaron in as a witness, he eventually confessed to the crime in detail. He was charged with murder on July 4th, but as if it couldn't get worse, he then said he was quite satisfied with what he'd done. He was then legally disowned by his parents, and for the first time in Scottish history, a judge ruled to release the juvenile's name. In the end, Aaron was sentenced to 27 years in prison, telling psychologists that he'd been having dark fantasies for years. He's already been hospitalized several times from attacks at the Young Offenders Institution, which may explain why he was training every day for this move to adult prison. Again, reports state that he knows he'll have a target on his back for what he did to Alicia.
This woman poured boiling sugar all over her husband's body, and this case is absolutely mind-blowing. This case takes place in England on July 14th, 2020. Karina Smith was a 59-year-old woman and was married to an 81-year-old man named Michael Baines. I tried to find pictures of Michael, but I think none are available on the internet. Michael was in need of care due to his poor health, and because of their difference in age, Karina was able to become his primary caregiver. The two had a child together named Michael Jr., and Karina had another son and daughter from a previous relationship. But in 2007, her son Craig took his own life at just the age of 25. Before his death, he went to prison for attacking a man. Following this, Craig became distressed and spoke to his mother. He said the man he attacked was a predator, and that a predator had touched him inappropriately in the past. He said, "Mom, he's a predator." Shortly after this, Craig took his own life. Karina had formed a relationship with Michael while he was in his 40s and her in her 20s. She said the relationship was positive at first, but that was until his age began to become more noticeable, and things started to deteriorate as he aged. But despite this, she still provided Michael with the care he needed. On the 13th of July 2020, people who knew Karina said she had been acting differently and was described as angry and very upset. This was because her daughter had opened up about some horrific trauma both she and her now deceased brother had experienced at the hands of their stepfather, Michael. Karina's daughter told her that when they were younger, Michael would take advantage of them both and would touch them inappropriately. After Karina heard these allegations from her daughter, she remembered what her son told her about being attacked by a predator. The guilt of Craig's suffering from such a fate stayed with her for years, and a deep rage began to burn inside of her. On July 14th, 2020, at around 10 a.m., Karina returned to her home that she shared with Michael. She entered the home and grabbed a bucket, along with 3 kilograms of sugar that she had just bought. She then began to boil a large amount of water, creating a boiling syrup. Once this concoction was ready and scalding hot, Karina slowly entered Michael's bedroom. Michael was fast asleep and totally unaware that his wife was standing over him holding a bucket filled with boiling sugar. Filled with rage, Karina began to pour the boiling sugar all over her sleeping husband's body. Michael woke up and began to scream as the liquid destroyed his skin. This mixture of sugar and boiling water is often referred to as prison napalm, due to the horrific burns it can cause. Once the bucket was empty, Karina ran over to her neighbor's house, which was 9 doors down. She banged on the door until the neighbor answered. Karina didn't know her well, but told her what she had done. The neighbor called the police and explained what happened, and when the police arrived, they entered the home and found Michael whimpering in bed with skin on his arms and torso beginning to peel off. Michael was rushed to the hospital and Karina was arrested. Karina was then asked why she did this to her husband, in which she explained what her daughter told her, and that she became so enraged that she poured the liquid all over her husband. Michael was able to be stabilized but suffered burns to 36% of his body. And 2 weeks later, Michael passed away from his injuries. Karina was then charged with murder and was then found guilty of murder, and she was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 12 years. Cases like this always cause division. To some, Karina was a hero and someone who took revenge to protect her children, while others see her as a reckless murderer who killed her husband based off one simple allegation. So let me know your opinion on this crazy case.